Okay, so I replaced all the bearings in a 2006 Yamaha Rhino 660. It's got the same motor as the Grizzly. I use different methods. Um, this large one does have a place for a puller that you can use, and for the other bearings like this one here and these two here, I used a blind puller, and I believe this is a proto, but I believe this is a half inch, and it expands out to maybe 3/4 or 7/8, possibly 1 inch. I'm not positive on that, but this is a very common size, and I know I was able to get these two out. This one here in the back, you got to be real careful. It's a double bearing, but a lot of, you can use sockets to pound these out, but on this one you want to make sure you don't mistake this aluminum ring, which is actually part of the case. But when you first look at it, and all the other bearings, when you're pulling them, you could put a socket, like even this one, you could put a socket down there, tap that one out, and if you wanted to heat up the case, some people do that. But on this one, just don't mistake this for the outer race of the bearing. It's not. So you would want to, if you use the socket, you would want to use it on the inner race. And because yeah, you don't want to break that aluminum ring there. And there's a couple good videos on how to get this, remove this to do this bearing. One of the methods is, when you get all of the, the nuts and the retainers off and everything, you just tap right here. I used a piece of wood. I put a piece of wood on here, and then I hit it with the hammer, and that popped this bearing housing out. And then you need to use a ball hammer, like possibly a brass ball hammer that's got a ball on one side, and you're going to end up hitting this shaft through this vacated, when this is out of the way. And you just take a hammer, rest the ball on there, and then take a second hammer and pound that and shoot that shaft out that way. There's a guy, it might be Nebraska, something like that. There's a good example of that online. So there's a couple tips. When you're installing these bearings, some people put this case, and I did this as well. I found a free barbecue someone was giving away, and it still worked. And I put a propane tank on it, and I used the barbecue to heat up this engine case. And I forget the degrees or how long, but it's between 300 to 400. But you might want to check that out. Find out for sure the temperature. And then put the bearings, also put those in the freezer overnight before you do the installation. And I was able to get at least 2, maybe 3 of these bearings. It just popped right in. One of them popped in, but had to tap it down a little bit just to finish. Before you take these bearings out, I suggest taking pictures, something similar to like this angle, so you can see exactly how flush, like these two bearings, this bearing and this bearing are completely flush, but this bearing sticks up a little bit. This bearing back here sticks up slightly, and you've got this retainer. And also on mine, I didn't get the bearing in quite all the way. It was sticking up a little more than this is, and I could press back here, and you could really feel this whole retainer was jogging back and forth. And right now it's not even completely flush. It's pretty close. It's real close to being flush. But when you pull yours off, for example, before you pull your bearings, when you remove this, kind of take a good look and feel, you know, the clearance between this retainer and your bearing. So that way you'll know, you know, take pictures of it. And these bearings were all about the same. I did all the transmission bearings, which a lot of people don't do. I did the lower output shaft bearings as well. I just figured I have it apart. I might as well do them all, so you don't have to worry about one of them failing, you know, leaving a... But then again, if you've got low hours and you've got no metal in your engine and you're rebuilding it, and there's just no metals really in the motor at all, or maybe a very small amount of oil, and my motor, what happened is the oil pump sprocket broke somehow, and so that caused lack of circulation through the motor to the top of the motor, and this piston got hot and burned, and it degraded a little bit, but it didn't fail. And the crankshaft, I replaced this anyway. This isn't the super expensive crankshaft, but I'm building completely stock, so this should be sufficient for a stock motor. I'm not going to be racing it, putting any big wheels on it or anything like that. So anyway, so the piston failed, but it was the oil pump and the chain on the outside of this engine case that failed. And basically there was very little metal in this engine. But I replaced the oil pump anyway. I mean, I did everything, as you know, new crank, all new bearings. I put one of the benchmark middle drive plates on here. I flushed out this, you got this oil relief valve. What I did is just pressed it in with a screwdriver. I copied that from Ed Nichols on one of his videos, but I pressed the screwdriver down into that valve, and I would just spray a lot of oil in there, and I'd take my air compressor and I'd blow air in one of these, there's holes on the side down there. And so what I did, just to make sure that was clean without disassembling, you can take them apart. There's a retainer clip. I'm not sure how much force is behind that spring, how much of a hassle it is. So I noticed that I was able to push it down with the spring, and then you could see the opening. So I just sprayed a bunch of oil throughout it, and I used the air compressor to spray all the oil out. I used a paper towel to surround it, and I just kept doing that about 3-4 times. You know, you can see a little bit of dirt on the paper towel, you know, but anyway, I didn't replace that. Hopefully that won't be an issue. So that's about it. I used this, I used my old bearing when I wanted to use the press and to get this in, make sure it was tight. And remember, don't try to force this down too much, because it does stick up a little bit, and you definitely don't want to damage this aluminum case. They're $1,000 to replace, or more. You can buy used ones. The used ones go for around $500 or $600. So all right, yeah, I used just this metal L bracket, put it on top of the old bearing. But anyway, we'll check back with you later.